Hello and welcome to the Untethered Consciousness podcast. I'm your host, Rod Bland. It's currently 10 a.m. in Sydney on Thursday, the 17th. In the USA, it's the 16th around 8 p.m. It's super early in the UK. I think it's like 1 a.m. If you're joining me today, I would love to hear from you. So don't be shy. Drop a comment and let me know where you are from. Even if you're just dropping in and dropping out, I'd really appreciate it if you dropped a comment. Let us know your name and where you're from, and I can give you a shout out because I would love to hear from you. I'm just going to add the live studio queue to the banner. So today it's just all about having a chat about anything to do with near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, anything paranormal, all that weird stuff. So if you want to come into this studio with me and live and have a talk about that, whether it's something that you've experienced or whether it's something that you know someone else has experienced, or you just want to chat about it in general, well, don't be shy. So here we go. Jason has dialed in again. It's good to see you joining me again, buddy. I feel like I can count on you. If I'm going to have one person at least joining the live stream, well, you're going to be in here. Now, if you want to join in the studio, Jason, you are absolutely welcome, always. And if anyone else is joining in today, let us know where you're from. If you are watching this later, where you're watching the replay after the live stream is over, then just type so do the same thing just in the comments. Obviously, it's not live, but also put the word replay in the comments so that I know that some people actually are watching the replay. Now, the channel is really new. We've only been running since about mid-March. I've had some great guests, but we're still getting some momentum going. So I'm committed to running these live streams every Wednesday, and every Wednesday for me, which is going to be Tuesday for some of you in the USA, early Wednesday in the UK and other parts of the world, depending on which part of the date line you're on. And the reason why I run these live streams, well, there's actually two reasons. So one is I can think of nothing better to do with my life than just to run this channel and talk to people about their experiences, their spiritually transformed experience with their near-death experiences, out of body, the whole gamut, all that weird stuff. I've been fascinated by it since I was a kid. And one of the very first books that my parents bought me was one that was called Explaining the Unexplained. And it was this really thick book. I don't even know we could still buy it. Pretty weird book for an 8-year-old to ask for his parents to buy, right? So anyway, I've always been fascinated by it. And one day I saw somebody being interviewed for a near-death experience. I thought, that's what I want to do. Totally different from what I do as my sort of everyday job and normal living, but I could think of nothing better than doing this for as long as I can possibly imagine. So that's reason number one why I run these live streams. It's to that it's just part of building my channel, creating additional content. Number two is so that I can connect with other people who are weird like I am, or who have had these experiences, and create a community. So if you've just joined us, welcome. Drop a comment and let me know where you're from. Say hi, and I will give you a shout out if you do that. If you are interested in joining me live in the studio, the link to the studio is there in the banner. So it's a bit.ly/UC 230516. So UC is for you, Untethered Consciousness. 230516 is the date. At least it's the date in the USA, where most of my viewers are from. If you are interested in jumping into the studio and having a chat with me about anything to do with near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, the paranormal, pretty much any of that runs the full gamut, then I'd be happy to have you in the studio. And yeah, let's have a chat. So As I said before, drop a comment, let us know where you're from. If you're watching this on the replay, just type in the word replay and still drop a comment and let us know where you're from. And that gives me a bit of an idea of where people are tuning from. And it's fun. This is meant to be something where people can just have some fun together. I always enjoy interacting with people and getting to know other people who like to talk about the things that I like to talk about. Sometimes if you've had any kind of experience or you have an interest in this area to do with the all things spiritual and paranormal, sometimes it can be a bit of a lonely place because not everybody in your friend circle, sometimes not anybody in your family circle has any interest, any understanding, any tolerance for talking about that. So sometimes it can feel like it's a bit of a lonely place. So, that's why I'm creating this here for us today. So let's see what else I wanted to talk about. I thought while waiting to see whether somebody wants to join us in the studio, just have a chat about what my intentions are with actually creating the channel in the first place. So we started back in March. I think we just had guest number 8. Some of the other channels that I'm really inspired by is Next Level Soul by Alex Ferrari, I think, and also the Jeff Murrow podcast, which is Jeff. I know his wife's name is Murrow. I really admire those 2 channels. I think that anything that you do in life, if you can find somebody who you can model that you really admire their work, then you have a really good leg up to create something of your own. So I really admire those 2, and I follow watch a lot of the interviews that they do and like how they do things. So I'm learning a lot by watching those. And I started this channel because I just have a great interest in this topic, and I think that it's important that people are allowed to tell their stories and be able to tell them in a place where there is zero judgment and there is zero opinion. It's just to express what their experience was, and for other people to be able to perhaps gain some comfort, some insight from seeing other people's experience as well. And it's the great thing about the internet. We can do that anywhere in the world, which is pretty cool. So that's really why I created the channel in the first place. And as I said at the beginning of the live stream, if this is all that I could do, I would be absolutely ecstatic. So it's really early days, and anyone who's watched my videos, subscribe to the channel, I really appreciate your support. It just means the world to me. And also anyone who's come on as an interviewee on the channel as well, I really appreciate that, because I think sometimes, especially if for those people who have turned their experience into something that's sort of part of their livelihood and their business, then I'm sure it's better to be interviewed by someone who has a large channel, a large following already, than to be interviewed by someone like myself who's only really just starting out. So I appreciate that support too. So as I mentioned, if you are dropping in to I can see that, well, I know that Jason is here from Wisconsin, and it's good to have Jason here. I know we've got someone else there as well. So don't be shy. Drop a comment in the chat. Let us know where you're from. Let us know what your name is. If you'd like to join me live in the studio, I would love to have you do that. The link to join the studio is in the scrolling banner there. So it's bit.ly/UC230516. That will get you into the StreamYard studio. We're live streaming to both Facebook and to YouTube, and I can let you into the studio from there, and we can have a chat. Don't be shy. And if it's not something that you've done before, doesn't matter. This isn't really something that I've done before either. This is my second live stream that I've done where I haven't had a guest booked in, and we can all wing it together. That's completely fine. So what else did I want to talk about? Let's see. All right. So as far as the upcoming guests go, we've got a few booked in. I'm just going to, oh, here we go. All right. Actually, you know what? Before we get into the upcoming guests, we've got Jason Janas, who was our very first guest on the channel. I'm eternally grateful to Jason because his interview absolutely blew up, which was pretty handy when you've got a brand new channel. And it looks like he's managed to get his camera working this time, which is even better. So let's just bring Jason in.
How you doing, buddy?
Hey, good, man. How are you?
I'm fantastic, man. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you.
That's great. All right. So let's just, we've got that layout. Let's just try this crop layout. Yeah, we'll give that a go. All right. Well, I'm glad to see you've got your camera working.
Yeah,
today.
I don't know what was wrong last time, but you know, we figured it out and we'll make it work.
Yeah, cool. So what is it? It's like about 8 o'clock. Yeah, little past 8 there in Wisconsin.
No, it's about it's a little after 7, about 10 after 7.
Ah, yeah. Okay. Have you guys had daylight saving recently kick in?
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Yep.
All right. So now it's 7 in some parts. Yeah. So what's been happening, man? Anything interesting since the last time, week ago when we last spoke?
No, you know, I've just had a lot of people, they found out about my NDE. So, you know, one of the hottest topics at work is like, well, the Bible's God's word. Jesus died for our sins. And I'm like, no, everything that you just said is wrong. And well, the Bible.
I'm sure that goes down well.
And I'm like, okay, so you're telling me in my death, in my time with Father, that, you know, he lied to me? Is that what you're saying? Well, no, but you know, and it's the cat and mouse. It's the wheel on the bus goes round and round. You know, well, the Bible's got, no, it's not. It's man's written word. And when we come here to experience being flawed, unperfect. We're not perfect here. No right, no wrong, no good or bad. We discussed this before. So when I say, you know, who wrote the Bible? Christians wrote the Bible in year 382 under Pope Pius. They finally came together with the New Testament. Man wrote the Bible, right? Well, there is no well. It's either yes or no. And I said, well, yes. Okay. Then we're flawed. We interpret things the way we want them to sound and to validate our personal beliefs. I said, that's what the Bible is. I said, so, you know, Christianity, I said, whether you want to believe this or not, I found out the truth. I said, Christianity institutionalized guilt. Keeps you going to church. It keeps you feeling guilty. It keeps you, you know, supposedly in line. And when I was with Father, my first time ever speaking to him, you know, I did nothing wrong in my entire life. And as I'm sitting there judging myself, he loved me even more. So when I say that, you know, the Bible's wrong, the parts of the Bible are absolutely beautiful and are true. Jesus's message is very true. Love one another. He simply came up here to muddy up the water, to say, look, listen, people, this is who you are. So the powers that be finally were listening when he said, I and the Father are one, right? Well, what he failed to say, what he was trying to get you to think is like, well, if he says, I and the Father are one, it means I and the Father are one. The moment of my transition, I was everything up to and including him, or not him, but it to God. So when Jesus said, I and the Father are one, he was simply stating, listen, people, you and the Father are one. We are all one. Okay. What does that make you? And if you, I forget, that's not Proverbs, but I can't think of it right now. When they were going to stone him for saying that, you know, why Jesus said, why are you going to stone me? And he says, you know, for what good works, you know, are you going to stone me for? He says, not for your good works. Those are great. He says, but to say that you're the Son of God, that's blasphemy. And he says, well, doesn't it say in your writings that ye are gods too? I know we discussed this before. And, you know, they couldn't stone him because it says it right there in the Bible. We are all gods. So if we and the Father are one, that makes us a God. You're a God. I'm a God. Everybody out here is a God. that's on this planet right at the moment, whether it's an infant or someone at 102. We are all gods. We are all one. We are all the same. So when I tell him that, he goes, "Wow, you know your Bible." I said, "I know it better than you. I lived it. I was it, you know." And so I said, "So how can you sit there and tell me then that the Bible is, you know, God's word?" And I said, "It was written by man 2,000 years ago. And they left out everything that they didn't want, or which was the truth, you know, for the people to know." Is like, how many, you know, when you go to church every Sunday, do you ever hear that sermon? Does your father ever preach that at the pulpit? And he's like, "No." I said, because Christianity institutionalized guilt. They looked at Jesus and said, "Okay, fine. Well, we'll change it. He is the only Son of God." Thus, kicking him upstairs with the boss, God, right? And becomes untouchable. So, and then the church says, "Well, you pick up your cross and you follow Jesus." Now, any good Christian will tell you there's no way on earth I can. There's no way. Because you know, tomorrow you're going to drink, tomorrow you're going to go out and have sex, tomorrow you may covet the neighbor's wife, or whatever it is that you want to do, none of which is wrong. But the church will say you're a sinner. So where do you do? Every Sunday, you go to, I've grieved, you know, I've sinned. That's not what Jesus wanted. That's not what he came here for. Jesus simply came here to tell us to wake up, realize who you are. You are me. I am you. We are the same. So he got that stick in the water and he just churned up that dirt and mud and basically freaked everybody out to the point of where, you know, he was doing his job so well that he was simply murdered. And one of the best ways the Romans could murder somebody was to crucify him. So, you know, they crucified him and, you know, that was that. But, you know, I want people to understand that, you know, Jesus didn't come here for you to, you know, your get out of jail free card every time you feel like messing up. That's not the case. He simply came here to awaken us to who we really are, to wake up out of the dream that we're in, you know, because it's the matrix, it's the dream, none of it's real. So, you know, he came down here to give us the biggest selling point of who we are, love. It was his key message throughout his entire ministry. Love one another, love your neighbor, love yourself, love. And, you know, when I experienced my NDE, that was the most unbelievable love, because there's really nothing here on this planet that can describe in our limited language the love that exists from where we come from home. And I tell people we're simply interdimensional beings. We never die. This suitcase will die, but we as a soul, as a God, will never die. So, you know, what's there to fear? Fear doesn't exist, right? If none of this is real, then what are you afraid of? You know, what's going to happen 5 minutes from now? Can you control it? No, it's already in a way written because it's what you chose in your life. So when I tell him that, you know, he's got no good comeback. And it's just like, but he keeps saying it's God's word. It's Jesus, you know, I am the truth, the light, and the way. The way of what? You're
Yeah.
already that, you know what I'm saying? So what are you trying to say? You are already the truth. You are already saved. You know, there's nothing to save. We simply just come here to experience everything that is not what we are, which is love. So, you know, quit, you know, we as a species, and I had this conversation last night in an interview, quit labeling things. Well, that was good. That was bad. That was horrible. That was, well, I mean, no, we've become a labeling society. There's nothing to label because there's nothing that is bad or good. You know, it's simply, that was a really challenging experience, or well, that wasn't too bad. Let's, what, you know, and there's always a lesson. There's something to learn out of whatever it is that's happening in your life. And if you don't face it, it'll continue and it'll keep coming at you. It'll keep coming at you and it'll keep progressing and getting harder and harder and harder until you finally face that challenge and say, okay, I'm done with it. Yeah, we're going to not do that again. Or that was a good idea. We'll follow it. There's always a lesson to be learned here, you know? So. You
So
know,
have you met many other people, so you're sort of outed at work now as far as your NDE goes because you're out on the internet. Have you met many other people or anyone else who has had an NDE since you've started talking about yours?
I have not met. Well, I'm good friends with. He's going to have his own little shindig in about an hour. He's out in Hawaii. His happened in 2019, almost exactly the same way mine took place in the ICU. He's had a couple NDEs because he died on the table twice. So he's had a couple different ones, and we get along, really well. And we talk about how somebody with an NDE, if somebody's trying to fake it or say that they've had an NDE, I don't want to be rude here, but our BS meter, you know, um, because I'm a true empath now, so I can feel you. I know whether you're lying to me or whether you're not, or whoever that person is that I'm talking to you, and I'll tell you right away within, or tell him that they're lying, and it's just. I can feel your soul. The person that I'm talking to, I can feel your soul. So there's no lying to me, so I know what you're going to do, or I know what you're going to say. So, but my BS meter goes through the roof now. It's just like, I know whether somebody's lying or, they're just lost, or, I still get contacted through my interviews, I'm lost. I mean, I need your help. What about this? What about that? Something's not adding up. I get a lot of that. I grew up Christian my whole life. A lot of what, everything that I've been taught isn't adding up to what you guys are saying, and I said, because you've been lied to your whole life. And that's why when I came back within a month, I left Christianity. I went to talk to my pastor, and he freaked out. He ostracized me, wouldn't call me back, wouldn't text me, basically, wouldn't ban me from coming into church, but, wanted nothing to do with me. And I realized,
Just based on the fact that you talked about your experience?
Just because I talked to my experience, he wanted nothing to do with me. And I realized that I was like, wow, the cat's out of the bag. You truly are sitting there lying to everybody, to making them feel guilty about what they've done. And they've done nothing wrong. And that's my biggest message to people, is I want you to know that you are loved, that you're not alone, and that you've done nothing wrong. Well, what about all these mass shootings? Well, that's because someone wanted to experience that. Okay. And those people that did, you're calling that person that did that to them a bad person. Well, they were asked to do that. Okay. But that's what people don't understand with their 3D limited mind, is that, well, that doesn't, well, you're not to make sense out of it. You're to learn something from it. They gave up their lives, whoever they were, whatever the age they were, they gave up their lives for a bigger reason, for the planet, for all of us, to get this message and what they were trying to convey in that. Could have been a family member, it could be me or you, it could be anybody, it's always a message. There's always something there when something happens like that, and I don't want people labeling things anymore, because they're getting further and further behind. What I mean by that is lost. They're believing in the wrong things. They're believing in the dream, basically. They're so engrossed in the dream that, well, this must be real. None of this is real. It's all a hologram. It's all fantasy. It's what we're dreaming. We're manifesting it at home, and we're making this happen. Why? Because this is what we chose to experience when we come here. So when we choose to forget, which we all do, otherwise we wouldn't be able to come here. We'd be like, there's no way I'm doing that. No way. No, we'd all kill ourselves, really. So when we choose to forget, then we believe in the dream, basically. So when you're a toddler, a baby, an infant, you're growing up, and you're engulfed in a certain set of beliefs, right? From mom and dad, the people around you. So you believe in that your whole life. I believed in Christianity my whole life. If somebody were to say in 2017 that the devil didn't exist, I would have said, you're on drugs, man. What are you talking about? It says it right here in the Bible. If somebody were to say, well, Bible's wrong, I would have been like, really? Oh, so, you know God that well that, the Bible's wrong. Yeah, well, guess what? I ate my words because that's what I tell people now. No, the Bible is wrong. It's
Probably goes
beautiful,
down just
but
as
it's
well.
wrong. Right. So, there's irony for you. So it's just like, that's my biggest pitch when somebody calls and they're lost, and they're just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know, and I don't want to tell them what to do. I share my experience again. And this is the reason why I took these steps.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
are okay to do the same. If you still want to believe, God isn't going to, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about your religion. Religion to Father and to Jesus is meaningless. It's a human construct that we created to make ourselves feel good, to feel connected to Father when you don't have to do that. I have a conversation with him 100 times a day or more. Good morning, Father. Father, hey, I need help, or, I'm emotional today. Thank you very much. And I just talk to him. I have a conversation with him. You know, to some, it's a one-way conversation, but if you know how to listen, you'll feel it. Your sixth sense will go off. Like, I'm going to go to the store, or sometimes you get, ooh, I better not. That weird feeling that you get, and Father's talking to you, the other side is talking to you. Don't go, or don't go to work, or, don't do this, or go do this. You get that weird feeling that most of us, you'll dismiss. That's just crazy. That I'm not listening to that. That's Father talking to you. Father talks to you every day. We've just learned to tune him out. Well, don't listen to that gut feeling that you're having. Listen to it. It's the other side talking to you. It could be your guides. It could be your archangel. It could be Father. So
yeah.
listen to that.
And it's I think it's as myself, I had zero religious upbringing. So I think we all have a different context, and for anyone who's watching, when Jason's saying Father, substitute that with whatever works for you. So
Right.
that could be Source, God, etc. It doesn't really
Right.
matter. It's just as
And
a
the reason
general
I call
reference.
him Father is because in the moment of my transition, in the moment of that love, I felt, if you have children, when you're little ones and you adore them with all that love, hugs, I felt like I was his one and only son, that the universe's love was just flowing through me. And that's why I call him Father. You can call him, like you said, whatever you want, God,
Yeah,
source, whatever you want to call him, your best friend. It doesn't matter. He doesn't care. So
yeah. Now we've got Kat Ferris chiming in from Canada. Hello, Kat. Thank you for joining us. I have no
Cat,
idea what
Holly.
time it is. No idea. Which part of Canada are you from? Let us know. I have a few friends from Canada. One who grew up right at the foot of the Rocky Mountains. So let us know where you're from, Kat. If you're game, join me in the studio. If you've got something you want to talk about,
There you go.
Yeah. Don't be shy. There'll be someone apart from Jason at some point that'll want to get in. Somebody said to me, "You are crazy having an open line where you could get any kind of like troll in there." I go, "Well, let's just see. Could be fun."
My biggest thing is I lived in fear my whole life, of burning in hell, Satan, the devil. I've clearly upset God because of my childhood and all the aches and pains. And this comes to your free will. She's from British Columbia and Vancouver Island.
Sounds wonderful.
Man, I'm telling you. So in that moment of my transition, I did nothing wrong. And I knew it instantly, when I said, it's before you can even think, this is how fast things happen. Before you can even think of the thought to say, I want to get something to drink, before you can even think about it, you have the answer. Okay. So it doesn't really even get formed in your head. And you know it. I knew I was home. I knew right where I was. I know who was in front of me, who later showed up, Jesus. And I said, I'm home. And I said, what a beautiful day to die. Like, it was so nonchalant that, I've done it, when I asked my guide, Jeffrey, Yeah, I'm like, Jeffrey, I can't, you know, you're the Toys R Us giraffe. I mean, I can't call you Jeffrey. So you're going to be John. And I said, John, how many times have I died? And an instant number was given to me, 3,200. So I've died over 3,200 times. And the word ancient was used with me. So, um,
It's
and all of them.
pretty hard for the average person to go, that can't be possible, isn't it? But there's so many people that I interview that say exactly what you were saying about familiarity. It's like you were there, they were there, and they're describing their experience to other people, and they go, why didn't you like ask questions about this or that or this or that? And they said at the time it just seemed like a very familiar place, and it seemed quite normal and natural to be there, and it didn't even occur to them to ask about, you know, the meaning of life, the universe, and everything at all.
No, it
Yeah.
was, you know, I didn't, that's the thing is I only spoke twice, and it was, like I said, I'm home, and it was because I was shocked. I was like, I'm home. Like, I shouldn't be here right now. Kind of thing, you know, like, what am I doing here, you know? And, you know, it's like, and then, you know, I'm just sitting here enjoying the colors. I'm talking to the grass, which is love, you know, because I could see their soul and they were happy to see me. The trees were happy to see me. And I'm like, I'm home. And I was just basking in all of this abundant love. And I was never more alive home there on the other side than I have been here. I come home to a place that I reside at, but it's not home. Nothing here on this earth is home. It is simply everything here on earth is nothing more than a set of tools that we need to navigate through what we call our so-called contract or our life here, you know, and every single one of us is vitally important um, to getting and proceeding on. Like I said, God didn't wake you up this morning. Hold on, let me read this. Hi, Jason Ron. Thanks for the good works of love. I need to get back to work soon. Just came to say hello. Good work this evening. Sending love from Singapore.
Yeah.
North
Thank
Star.
you,
Thank
North
you.
Star. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen a comment from this person on one of their videos before. So yeah, really appreciate you dropping in. Thanks very much for keeping us company for a little while, and yeah, appreciate your support. It means a lot to me.
Yes, thank you. Like I told you before, God did not wake you up this morning because he needs you to take another breath. He doesn't. He doesn't even need us. He loves us, and that's why he created us as gods. So he woke you up this morning because somebody out there is depending on you, meaning you're a part of their contract. In order for them to complete their mission, they need you. So for you to kill yourself, ooh, Father's gonna jump through some hoops because he's going to put other people in play to make sure that this person's contract can be fulfilled because you denied them of that. So
Yeah.
that's what I want people to understand about, you know, suicides. One, you're going to come right back relatively, like instantly. You're going to be put into another suitcase in mom's tummy, whether it's a boy or girl, you don't get to choose. And you will experience everything you did already in the life that you took up until that point. You will relive it. Or you may go home for a little bit and then Father's or God's going to come say, it's time. And you're going to go finish your contract. That's the only way we go home. So when I tell people that, don't kill yourself, you know, somebody out there is depending on you. It could be at the grocery store, it could be at the movie theater, it could be out to dinner with somebody. And it was something as simple as a smile, like, hi, good evening, you know, but it fundamentally changed that person's life, their outlook on life. They were going to kill themselves when they went home, you know, and you might have stopped that, and that you're a vital part of that. So, you know, when you wake up every morning, and I love this, is that somebody out there is depending on me, not my children. Somebody out there is depending on me, you know, so vitally that that's the reason why they're here. And I chose to take a part in that because, like I said, we all know each other. Nobody here on this earth does not know everybody. We just don't remember it at this time. So we know everybody. So when we're here, our friends, our besties, or whatever, hey, can you do this for me? And it might be a, no, I'm not going to, or okay, fine. You know, and then, you know, you're born, and then 45 years later, that timeline is we're meant to cross, and it happens. They may be able to die tomorrow, or, you know, whenever, and vice versa for me. That may have been it for me, you know. I know what I'm doing now is a big part of it because I can feel it. And like I said last time we talked, you know, you are no different than me. You are putting this message out there for others to listen to, because maybe they feel stupid coming here. I've been Catholic my whole life, and now something inside of me is telling me it's wrong, and I'm afraid there should be ostracized from the church, from your friends, your family, because they believe so much in the lie or the dream that, you know, you'll be an outcast. So, you know, you do all of us that have had an NDE great justice in putting it out there, because they can have it in the comfort of their home, you know, and say, wow, you know, this is what I am feeling. This is what I'm believing. And again, you may change their life because they saw a video of me, or they popped up on here, and they're able to listen and hear it live. And I think it's just as equally as important as my message. So, you know, kudos to you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, well, I think if people can question, you know, what they consider to be true, you know, I've never said to anyone, because I've seen different, you know, some people are religious, they turn away from religion, and some people, there's one lady in particular who I recently spoke to who was a devout Catholic, but there was aspects to Catholicism that just didn't add up for her. But she really enjoyed the communion side of things, and that's that aspect, and she didn't want to let go of that. So she's found a way to kind of, you know, make a blend of her Catholicism and still enjoy that aspect of things. And I guess in a way, she's also, I think, bringing a different aspect and having people who may have been quite sort of dogmatic about their beliefs, perhaps thinking, well, there's other ways of looking at this, because here's a person who is still, you know, considers himself Catholic, and yet she's had this experience and she has this point of view that is different to what we've been taught. So I think that's how change happens. You know, you can totally sort of give up something, but I think if you can sort of remain in a community, if it works for you, then change sort of happens from the inside. So I think good for her. You know, that's
Right.
you know,
And that takes guts to do, because it's a big,
yeah.
you know, it's a big leap. You know, when I left Christianity after that, I felt horrible, like I was letting down, you know, Father or God. You know, it's like, I just found you, and now I'm, you know, giving you up. And that was the message, that was the lesson that I needed to learn when, you know, I told, you know, I was having a meltdown, and I said, you picked the wrong person. I don't know what why not the Pope? You know, why not somebody that is worthy, you know, of your love? And it was a clear, definite, it was a clear voice. It was spoke to me. And, you know, God said, why not? You are my son. I love you.
Yeah.
You know, and it was at that point that, you know, there was the lesson. I don't need a religion to be close to God. All I have to do is talk to him. He sees me, he hears me, and he's feeling everything that I'm feeling. And that is really when I left Christianity and devoted myself to him. I talk to him 500 times a day. We generally, it's a one-way conversation, but, you know, at times I get very emotional, so I know I'm feeling him, and I'm there with him, and that's all he's asking for. That's all he wants. People call it in religion, have faith, right? You haven't seen God, which is untrue. You are taking everything here on faith. So have that faith, believe in who you are, you know. And I tell people this all the time, you know, if you love your family and you love your kids, how do you know you love them? You know, and I ask you, and I'll ask you this, Ron, do you love yourself?
Yeah, well, it's sometimes it feels like it's a work in progress.
Right. And,
But
you
yeah,
know,
I'm always
my
working
whole
on
life.
accepting myself as to how I am. Yeah.
Right. So, you know, Jesus made that message loud and clear. He's like, you know, love yourself. If you can't love yourself, then how can you love if you don't love yourself, how can you love your children or your partner or anybody else that's walking on this earth? You don't know what love is then. So that was my first lesson after my NDE, was accepting who I was. And now it was harder because now the man that I knew for 50 years died. I've been reborn into who I am. So now it was really tough to, accept who I was. And it took me a few months. And I finally said, I do love myself. I love myself like there's no other, and that's when the growth just started leapfrogging and jumping over everything. It's just like when you can see the love in everybody, when you can just see the truth, like I said, fear doesn't exist anymore for me because it's not real. It's an illusion. So when I live my life out of love and I live my life out of no fear, life has become really simple, really simple. We complicated the hell out of it, and for most people, they still do because they're believing in the dream. They're caught up in their dream and they think that it's real when in fact it's not. So, when you can wake up out of that dream and you can realize that what you're going through is nothing more than what you prescribed yourself, it's not all bad. No matter what you're going through, I just don't label things anymore. I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of tough. We'll get through it. Right. And we get through it and you move on and you learn from it, so love yourself.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll get through it. So I use that with my wife sometimes. Look, we've been through this before. We go through it just like we did before, and eventually do. And you can apply that to a lot of things in life. It's definitely easy to get hung up on stuff.
You get hung up on the negativity and woe is me. Why me? Well, if you want to live in that, then that's what you're going to live in, right? If you choose to say, okay, this is why it happened, we're not going to do that again, and face that problem and just say, like we just did, we're not going to do that again. And then you move on, drop it, forget about it.
Yeah. It was at Kyle Cease. I don't know if you've heard of Kyle Cease. He's a comedian who kind of made a transition from being a stand-up comedian, one of the best in the world, to being it's kind of like teaches people about life, about this kind of thing, what we're talking about.
Sure.
And he said, when you're in pain, just give it 24 hours. Whatever kind of pain you're in, he's talking about emotional pain, of course, but just give it 24 hours and then see if it's still there. And but don't make any drastic decisions if it's really major. And I thought that was really useful because you can often experience something that's just seems like it's just the end of the world, and then but if you give it time, a little, even just even a few hours, but a whole day, it often transforms and it becomes, oh, that's not really that big an issue. Or there's a path, there's a solution that I can see, and it's never as bad. So you can, I think that was really useful. I find that useful.
Right, because when you're living in that pain, right, that's all you're thinking about. So you may be in a room and there may be 6 doors, right? You're only focused on the one ahead of you because that's the one where you're receiving the pain, right? Well, if you stop and think and just relax a little bit, all other avenues open up and you can make what I would call a rational decision, because when you're only concentrated on making the pain go away, and that option that's given to you may not be the best one. It may get you eventually where you're going, but it may not be the easiest or the best way. So I agree with that. Take some time, jump out of what you're in, that pain, and try and think of grocery shopping, a food list, whatever it is that you got to do. And then when you realize that you're not focused on it, you can see those other doors and you may go, oh, I got a better idea. And that may be, you may go off to the 3 o'clock door instead of the 10 o'clock, and it may have been a much easier path. So I agree with that. Take some time, calm down, step out. Even if it is excruciating, I had to do that in the ICU. I was in the most unbelievable. There are no words to describe the pain of being in the ICU on a ventilator. None. Every part of my body was in excruciating pain. And in order for me to try and skirt that issue or move around it was to think of different places where I could be, or, you know, what would sleep be like, or anything but the moment that you're in, because that's where you can create hell, right? Well, that was hell. Well, if you want
Yeah.
to think about it that way, sure. You know, but I was trying to convince myself of being on a beach, eating a banana split, anything but the pain that I was in. So I was trying to side skirt it, but you know, it was just too much, you know.
Yeah, you must have wanted to just kill me now. Just
Oh
turn it all
man.
off and let me die.
That was it, man. You know, people don't know, you know, when they see people in a movie in the ICU, a tube in there, you know, they have no idea how painful that is. It felt like my head was on a cement floor and somebody was taking a sledgehammer and just hitting it every 3 seconds, just waves and waves of pain. And that pain just traveled through my entire body. It was, it was unrelenting, unmerciful. And I've told people this, I'll say it here, is like, I will never go through that again. That was pain that I didn't even know could exist, kind of pain. And it was, yeah, it was brutal in every way. And then I had my NDE and I was like, wow, there's no pain. I'm young again. You know, I'm home. Well, like now I'm going to renege on, you know, please don't let me die. I'll stay, you know, and that was, no, no, you're going back.
I'm
And then when
good.
I came back and I woke up, I was in all that pain again. I'm like, so it was, you know, I tell
Did you
people, go ahead.
sorry, did you
No.
find that like after being there and then coming back, you just had even though it was the same pain, you had a different perspective about it?
Oh yeah. I was, you know, I didn't even think about it. Um, anymore. I was like, what just happened to me? And if I tell somebody about what I just experienced, like I knew everything there was to ever know. I was with God. I was with I know who they were. I was out of my body, above my. They're gonna lock me up. You know, there's no way anybody's gonna listen to this. I didn't even know what an NDE was at the time. So, bye, North Star. Thanks
Yeah.
for stopping in.
Yeah, thanks for joining. It sounds like he's had a near-death experience, or I'd say he could be she as well, a near-death experience or something like that. But yeah, thanks for dropping in. Yeah, I've it has given me a different perspective, your experience, and also there's another experience. His pen name is T.S. Dismas, Brian Hoyland, and he I don't know if you've seen his interview. he had heart issues, like his heart gradually got worse and it was failing, and he had a device like a pacemaker installed that was designed to shock his heart when it went into a bad rhythm, but the device itself was faulty, and so he was getting these shocks that were basically, he had one that woke him up in the middle of the night. That was his introduction to the fault. That was, he felt it was like as somebody had belted him with a sledgehammer that hard, full pelt in the
Oh
chest.
yeah.
And then he had another one, and then another one, and he was just getting shocked. And I think, man, how did you live through that? It's just,
Well, you don't have a
just amazing.
choice.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have a choice. You're going to go through it. Why? Because it's something that you wanted to experience. Now, to you and I, that sounds absolutely absurd, right? Like I wanted to experience that in the hospital. Well, this guy was going to say no, you know, but to my true self is like, well, I want to know what that feels like. I want to experience that. Well, I'm telling you now, no, you don't. So like when I make fun of, people are NDEs, it's like, when I get back home, I'm going to talk to myself and say, listen, pal, okay, we're going to have a chat because you're going down there this time. I'll stay up here. And that really wasn't fun. So no, we're not going that route, and it makes people laugh, but it's the truth, because what we're doing, this is, there's just a smidgen of us here. So we're, our true selves are living vicariously through us, right? That's how we're learning. That's how, who I truly am, which isn't Jason, back home, is experiencing this conversation and, work and all of that stuff. So, they're living vicariously through us. So when I say I'm going to have a chat with myself, that's exactly what I'm going to do when I get home, and listen, no more of this stuff. So this is This is the list you follow, you know.
Yeah, I think
You know?
Tom Campbell, he's a physicist. So I don't know if you've read any of his books. They're quite fascinating. Tom Campbell wrote a trilogy of books called My Big Toe. So it's My Big Theory of Everything.
Okay.
And he was someone who was part of, I'm sure you've heard of the Monroe Institute in America. So he was part of, God, what's his name? His first name, Monroe. Anyway, Mr. Monroe, Tom Campbell was one of the people who was there when they first set up the institute. So he was, Monroe was sort of testing these different methods of reaching other realities other than the physical one. Anyway, so out of those experiences over a long time, and he's like a rocket scientist, like a very engineer type person, and he was having these experiences, and he's turned this into a theory of everything that explains like basically life, the universe, and everything. And he talks about it in terms of there's the you, and then there's like you have these little individuated units of yourself, which are they're like an avatar that comes down to earth. So like you were saying, there's the you up there, and then you kind of take a slice off, like a little slice of yourself, and then down it comes in, but it all sort of feeds back into this one experience. So when you say you've had 3,200 lives, I believe that, because you can imagine, like, if you're not doing that just once, but you could be doing that like hundreds of times in hundreds of different timelines, hundreds of different places, hundreds of different planets.
That's right.
It stands to reason that you could have a lot of different experiences accumulate.
We don't start out here. Earth is, in our galaxy, our solar system, it is simply the hardest place to incarnate into. So when we first leave home, so to speak, we don't start out there. We start out in other galaxies, other dimensions, other times. Well, time doesn't exist no matter what, only here in the physical. But in other planets and solar systems, you're still connected to home. So you may be married, you may be in, on a planet 100 billion light years from here, and you may be having, a life, but you're still connected to home, which means you can still talk to Father, you can still talk to everybody, you're still connected to home. So you're getting your feet wet, and then when you get your feet wet, then you come to the one place that you can go to, a place where there's free will, where you're not connected to home, you don't have the connection to God, and you come here. But that's only after you've bounced around and had a few other lives to get used to being incarnated into. So it was like when you see the first Avatar, when you see him go through the tube and the white thing, and he wakes up in the blue avatar, right? Well, that's what happens to us when it's time. We go through the dimensional difference, and then you're in mom, and then you're born. But coming here is brutally hard. So only those that are the strongest, and some of those that are the strongest, they still commit suicide. They cannot handle it. They just don't fit in. They will, for whatever reason, they still take their own life. So when we incarnate here, we're revered, back home. Like, they all know we're here, everybody. And, like I say, everybody at home. There's nobody that you don't know, and everybody here. So when you go back home, all the angels, your archangels, your guides, you're praised. They know what you went through. They know, everything. So when you are home, when you arrive back home, you're doted on, you're welcomed and loved, and all your family members. When I say family members, you're talking other planets, other solar systems, we're just in a humanoid body, a humanoid figure. You've been what we would call aliens. We don't look human. We start out at other places. So we're just a human right now, but it's not one of the, only forms out there. It's not. So, that's where Christianity gets upset, because one, there is no reincarnation. You simply die. Then you sit in the earth for, I don't know what, another 10,000 years before they say, Jesus will come again. No, your death is you immediately leave your body and you immediately go home. Some will have a loving experience. For those that their energy level isn't high enough, they enter the void. It won't be a pleasurable experience until, you raise your energy, and cry out to God or Jesus, Jesus, please, and then the light comes and, then you have the loving experience. But everybody goes home. So, and 3,200 times, I mean, I got to be close to the end where, when Jesus was here, at some point in time, I don't know if it was in his teenage years, his early 20s, but by the time he was in his practice preaching, he had already achieved Christ consciousness. He already merged with his true self. That's where his power came from. God didn't give it to him. He already had that power. We have that power right now. We just haven't achieved oneness yet. Christ or Yeshua did. And he was able to raise the dead, heal the sick, all the things that we could do. We can heal ourselves. We can do everything he did. We just haven't reached that point yet. And that's what we keep coming here to do, is to learn and to grow. And then eventually, when you achieve Christ consciousness, like St Germain is another, achieved Christ consciousness, you don't have that. You will not come back or reincarnate into another life. You've already achieved what we're all going after, which is oneness. And that's where my knowledge came from. It wasn't through God. I merged with myself instantly. I knew who I was. I said, I'm home. This is where I'm at. So that's what we're all trying to achieve. At some point in our lives, that's going to happen. We're going to achieve the oneness and greatness that Yeshua did. And then, when our time is done, then that's it. Then, there is no more incarnating. And then more than likely, we just become a teacher at home, because whether we're here or at home, we're still learning. We're still being taught. We just can't learn as much at home being told something than to actually live through it, right? If somebody said, stubbing your toe was bad, how would you know? Well, stubbing a toe is bad. Well, if you've ever stubbed your toe down here, then you know that, you're sitting down and you've got some colorful adjectives that are forming in your head, So, but to tell somebody up there that doesn't know what stubbing a toe, they're like, what's that? But, coming here, stubbing your toe hurts quite a bit. So we learn more here than when we are at home. So whether we're here or whether we're at home, we are still learning. We're still in a classroom. We're still, not all the time, but we're still being taught,
Yeah.
So
we've got a, hang on. I was saying, I feel so good being so many mistakes in life. Yeah. I heard somebody say that it was a podcast interview, that why is it that when does it end? Like, when does this learning, etc., when does it sort of, you reach this nirvana? And the answer to that was, well, you don't, because the very nature of consciousness is to expand and learn. Like, that is its nature. So it would be like going against your own nature for that to end. And I don't know why it provided some odd comfort to me to understand that.
Well, Jesus knows everything. God knows everything, right? So, when you look at Jesus, when I tell people he's not coming back to earth, he's not going to incarnate anywhere else. He doesn't need to. He's achieved the maximum that you can. So, and how long he's been doing that, I don't remember. I can't tell you that. But the reason God called on Yeshua was because he was further along than all of us at the time. So when they called upon him, he gave him, that wasn't, Jesus's mission. He was doing something else, somewhere else, in a different time, a different dimension. And he was simply asked to come here and to do this. And so he said, okay, of course, I will do your will. And he simply came here, and that was his mission, to muddy up the water. So when people say, consciousness is always learning, always growing, that's coming from a third dimensional, aspect, from who we are. interdimensional beings, spirits, souls, whatever you want to call it, gods. Okay. If we are gods, which we are, then why are we here? To learn. Is our learning ever going to end? Probably not. But if we reach that stage of Christ consciousness, which we all will, when, don't know, but we all will, then again, there'll be no need to incarnate anywhere because we are one with everything. There's nothing else to know. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, I guess at that point, I've heard mention, and this makes sense to me, is that you could choose to be a teacher, like come back as and have your memories, but come back as a teacher. And I think occasionally you see people like that. There's probably I've heard some channels talk about that. There's several hundred people that have reincarnated who have their memories from before, and they're sort of this ascended master's state, but they're in hiding.
That's
they
what
don't
you
make
would
themselves
want to
known.
call. What did I call those? Not light workers. What did I
Well,
call?
I refer to them as ascended masters, but they're not. They're ascended masters who have then gone, but still chosen to come back to, like,
Right, but but the enlightened ones, I call them the enlightened ones. It's because they did reach that stage where they have come back now into a new life, but they brought with them all the knowledge from their previous lives, and they can remember every life. So could you imagine me bringing 3,200 years of experience to right here, right now? People wouldn't understand it. They would be like, well, I was this, and, I could name off 3,000 lives that I've had, and it would blow people's mind. So yes, the enlightened ones that I called, they are here now. They are generally, I would say right now, anywhere up to the age, and some might be up there, but they're generally the ones that are going to help push us into world peace. The ones that being born now, the kids, especially babies, and probably up to like 5, they're going to remember who they are. And they're going to, after, this big event that takes place in about 100 years, they're going to usher in the world peace because they remember all their past lives, and they're going to push all of the rest of humanity, into that 5D consciousness, and we're going to evolve as a species. So the enlightened ones that I call them will remember all of their past lives. It's not to say that there aren't a few out there right now that have decided, Father, I want to come back. I want to be an educator. I want, and it could be in whatever, but it's under the explicit, you're not going to tell, everybody that, this is who you are. This is what I know. It would freak people out. Like, they'd be like, a lot of NDEs, when people listen to them, they have a hard time believing it because, that's going against, say, 50 or 30 to 50 years of hard experience that you've been taught and had it hammered into. Now, all of a sudden, you're just throwing rocks through all those windows. There's nothing in there anymore. And now you're giving me all of this to believe, so it's hard for people to not stay in the ruts. It's easier to stay in the grooves, right? Than to hop out and bounce all over the place and, be bobbing up and down. But
it's a comfortable place.
It's a comfortable place. Correct. So when you take them out of their comfort zone, people get scared, and there's the fear, so they choose to jump back into the comfort zone. And that's where the struggle begins, because they don't really fully want to bite down yet because they're too scared. But now there's too many of us. There's millions of us. All of our NDEs are different, but yet every single one of them are exactly the same. So how can that possibly be when, none of us have spoken to each other? So,
that's the thing about evidence. The anecdotal evidence becomes such a mass of it that at some point there's a tipping point where it goes, well, this is really true. This is really what's happening. These people aren't making it up. And
right, because
we're very close to that point, I think.
Right, because if you look at a scientist or a doctor, it's the same thing, right? That doctor has believed in going to school, in believing that once you shut the central nervous system off, you're dead. That's it. But yet we can tell you in vivid detail everything around us and what you're doing and what our bodies were doing and the things that we were seeing. How is that possible if there's no brain activity? So
Yep.
now you're telling doctors and everybody else after 40 or 50 years of research now that they're saying, I'm sorry, these people having these experiences, they have no brain activity. How can they tell me what I'm doing with a certain tool? Or how can they can tell me what was going on in the room with no brain activity? So you cannot dismiss who we are anymore. This is not us. This is nothing more than a suitcase, a tool for you to get around in and use while you're here to experience life on Earth. Once that contract is over, this dies. And that's how you choose to die. Could be in a fire, could be in a car accident. It could be slipping and falling on a grape at the grocery store. Could be heat exhaustion, or you could simply go to bed and that's that. You chose how you're born, who you're going to be born into. You choose how you're going to leave this world. For some, it's exactly what I explained. For some, it could be a shooting. Could be I went to work and my coworker stabbed me to death. It could be, a front end car, you could drink too much and had allergic reaction and there you go. You've chosen that, so when you see these things and you're reading about what these people are going through, what I try and tell people is what's the greatest form of love, Rod? What's the greatest form of love?
I'd say would be the parent for their children.
Not really. That's almost like a given. It's empathy.
I'd say what you
Empathy
mean.
is the greatest form of love. When you can, see the news, 16s, shot to death at school, I immediately get very emotional, not for the kids that passed. They got what they wanted. They fulfilled their contract. This is what they wanted to do. What I'm crying for is mom and dad and that unimaginable loss. And having that empathy right there, me getting emotional, is what we're here for. That's what we were created. That is the single greatest form of love you can show somebody is empathy.
Yeah.
Give
I
them
think
a
if
hug.
everybody had that, there would be
no
just
problem.
peace everywhere.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, when God asks certain people, I've heard this in interviews, how, what have you done? And, not enough. He said, how did you love? Not very well. And Father will say, you can do better. He's not judging. He's just saying we can do better. Right. And, and in her NDE, she was like, yes, I can. And he's okay. She goes back and she changes her life, and she becomes empathetic. She becomes more loving, but it starts with yourself. You have to love yourself. You have to forgive yourself. And that was the biggest thing for me, was forgiving myself, to know that, I was living this life as a horrible person. I did this wrong. No, I had to forgive myself for feeling that way for 50 years. Okay. When I did, and I became loving and empathetic towards myself, it's when I can feel that way about others. I can see that situation and get very emotional and just feel horrible for them. Like I want to give them a hug and say, everything's going to be okay. This is, but I can't go up to that parent that just lost their son in that way and say, hey, this is how they chose. It's so, I have to walk a fine line when I talk to people or get into depth about things, because most of the world right now isn't ready to hear the truth. They're still stuck in their dream. They're still stuck in that, the matrix, and that's okay. That's why we're here. We're here to get lost, but we're also here to be found, to awaken, to become aware of who you really are. And when you can do that, you can truly love on an epic level and feel that empathy for those, that are hurting, that are lost. Or when you drive by, you see a child homeless and hungry, feel love for them, feel a sense of guilt or remorse that you ate today and they didn't, and that's really what God is looking for. love. When Jesus said, love one another that way, even though you don't see that person living 10 miles down the road, but you heard that their son was, killed in a car accident, have empathy for them. The loss that they're feeling inside is something that you don't know yet, because you haven't lost a child. You don't know. So love them, and that's the greatest form of love that we can have here on earth, is empathy for everyone, So, yeah.
It's a good message, man. It's a good message. And with that, I think we'll wrap it up. It's that went time went by really quick. Kat from Canada, thanks for joining us. North Star for your time with us, and Jason, thank you. Really appreciate
Absolutely.
you
Kat,
helping
thanks
to
for
share
coming
some
in.
time.
Appreciate it.
I'll be back next Wednesday. If you're around, you're welcome to join in. I'm really happy that there was a few people came in. We had some comments. That was
Right. Beautiful.
That's very encouraging for me. So thanks
Good
all
for
the
you.
support.
Like I said, I can have my experience, but without you doing what you do and putting it out there for people to come in, and I think this is great for them to pop in and talk or to ask a question, because, like I say, without you, I can only talk to people, but you put it out around the world, and that's, epic. So that's,
Yeah.
you're just as part of, just as, important to what's going on.
Appreciate that, man. Love you, brother.
Absolutely. All right, my man. You take care. Goodbye,
Have a good
all.
one.
It was a pleasure seeing you.
Talk soon. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.